George Floyd's funeral this week was not the end of the Black Lives Matter resurgence, but yet another chapter. It seems clear that the movement and the police reform debates it has engendered are here to stay, whether it's Minneapolis, Louisville, or Las Cruces, New Mexico. We'll get right to it with our line panel this week. We're happy to have the Albuquerque Journal's Capitol Bureau Chief Dan Boyd with us ahead of this special session. And two line regulars are back, former Senators Dee Dee Feldman and Diane Snyder. Sorry, guys. There's so much news, it's hard to follow it all, but Dee Dee, let me start with you. Let me start with a really basic question. The Black Lives Matter message and movement, is it becoming clearer to the general public? Is it clear to you as a person? How do you sense that the BLM movement is being received out there?
There's been a surprising amount of support. You think about what happened 5 years ago in Ferguson, there really wasn't a huge majority of bipartisan support that is evident in polls now and also in the streets. I mean, there have been not only huge demonstrations in Philadelphia, for example, and Chicago and Washington, but also in small towns. And I think Albuquerque had 5 days of protest. And the amazing thing to me is this is young people. That because I think of the pandemic, the usual suspects are not there. And it's young people. It's a different, more diverse crowd than we've seen in the past. And it's really heartening. And, you know, the speed at which it's been accepted is I think, similar to what happened with gay marriage in terms of this is a long time coming. Both of them were a long time coming. And then when something happens, the dam burst, and suddenly there is a public recognition and acknowledgement that this is a very valid issue.
Isn't that interesting? You know, Dan, when you really think about it, it might take a while for this all to play out, what Dee Dee's mentioning, but if we're talking about a little bit later about police reform and things like that, resistance is part of the game, isn't it? It's hard. You see huge institutions all the time. It's very difficult to turn big institutions around, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there is this energy, and I think that might be kind of a tipping point, but I think there are a lot of questions about what that looks like and systemic changes and how do you go about doing some of that. You know, even the governor last week talked about kind of a paradigm shift and creating a new council and racial justice, but then also the director of the Office of African American Affairs resigned this week. So it can lead to some uncomfortable situations as well, and I think there's going to have to be some ongoing pressure to really change some of these institutions and a lot of dialogue about how they want to be reshaped and look going forward.
Mm-hmm. Senator Snyder, it's hard to get a beat on how effective the protests have been when you really think about it. The police had a tough go of it, obviously just a few days ago, but there's been a lot of noise lately from some police chiefs and some governors and some mayors saying reform is coming and all that kind of thing. How should we take, are they just using as a protest as a diversion for vandalism and the police are responding? What's your sense of it as you see it now on TV playing out?
I think it's two things. One is certainly more people have gotten the message and understand this really is a serious situation we're talking about. It has been for many years, but at least the attention has been gone there. Nobody could watch that video and not just cringe and know that this is wrong. It is even if you don't think about one being white and one being black, that was a human being that was being killed on TV. It was just something. But we've also had, and they've not received as much coverage, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but there have been a number of police officers that have been injured or killed, innocent people that have been. And most people that I've talked to understand a civil protest. Mm-hmm. That is part of what we are and have been from the very beginning of our country. But when the other people move in and it becomes violence and disruption and burning of buildings and businesses. I mean, these poor people have just had to go through the COVID process of not having customers, and here their whole life work is being burned out. So I think in that sense, the public is going, well, wait a minute, we can't have both. We can't do that. So
Right.
I think police are really struggling with where is their role? Where do they fit in? And how far do they step forward?
That's a good way to, I like that last bit of what you just said there. That's an interesting point. It is an internal conversation about what's appropriate, and it's going to be a long conversation. There's no doubt. Senator Feldman, you know, I mentioned in Las Cruces, we have a situation where an officer has been fired and now faces manslaughter charges after using that neck restraint on somebody. And then, you know, he died, and he got caught on his own camera saying, "I'm going to bleep choke you out, bro." And the guy ended up dying. This knee restraint thing, that's got to go. It's just something about it that's just not working, is it?
Yes, and I think that it has been banned in some jurisdictions. It needs to be banned statewide. I think what they call it is the vascular neck restraint. There are various definitions of it, but we know it when we see it, and it is police brutality. And I think that there have been a number of city councils and state legislatures. I think Hector Balderas here in New Mexico has suggested a whole list of reforms. This is a unique situation because what the protests are about is the conduct of the police. It's not like they're about some distant war. It's about the conduct of the police, and there are the police on the scene. And what I've noticed is that when the police show up in full military attire with tanks on the streets of Washington, that's when the violence accelerates. When they stand down, when the curfews are lifted, when the confrontation is de-escalated, things begin to calm down.
That's right.
I'm happy about that.
Sorry about that. Let me interrupt. Let me get Senator Snyder in here on this one. As we're talking about police reform here, the idea of defunding the police in quotes, how do you hear that? Because what I'm seeing is some folks feel that is like, they mean literally defund the entire police force. The other side saying, no, wait a minute, that's not what we're saying. We're actually talking about reform here. When you hear that, how do you hear it?
The first couple times I heard it, I freaked out. I thought, how stupid can you be? I do think they could have found a better phrase, but because then as I read more and realized they're just talking about reallocating certain funds for other things. Well, there's a part of me that, particularly for youth kinds of things, that's the one that made sense to me. However, what I would like to see is continued support for our police. Ours in New Mexico don't have all the equipment they need. Back when I was in the legislature, I was giving cameras to firefighters and helping fund cop cars for Albuquerque and other places in the state. So instead of taking the funds away, let's commit to this seriously and come up with more funds. We all know that our mental health programs need more funding, but let's not take from our law enforcement to fund our mental health, because that's just an excuse.
Dan Boyd, pick up on that if you would. You know, the details are yet to come, if there are details to come, but the idea of slicing off a portion of a police department's budget and using it for social issues, how do you politically, seems to have a little bit of traction right now.
It does, and I don't know if that's something that New Mexico is ready to commit to at this point. The governor said during a call with reporters yesterday that that's not something that's in the mix for the special session, talking about defunding state police or things like that. I do think, and I wanted to add, I think, you know, the whole question of the body cameras is really important in all this too. And even in this era of cell phones, I think if it wasn't for the videos of George Floyd, you know, that case probably wouldn't have gotten the traction. And I think a lot of these things have been happening for years, but now, you know, it's harder to avoid it. You know, it's there in front of you, and people are having to confront it.
Yeah.
Well,
we got about a minute left. Go ahead, please.
Well, having those body cams costs money, you know, and so that is a legitimate expense. But I think that the whole idea of restructuring the police force is a question of revisioning what their real role is. Right. Are they actually warriors, or are they guardians, as the Obama task force on police brutality said? And I think that they should be guardians. We should come up with a new model of community policing. We've already spent a lot of money on community services, as Diane was saying, youth services. And the mayor certainly has been trying to get more funding into the police. It's now 33% of the city's budget.
Wow. I'm gonna have to wrap you there. My fault. Just a time issue, not a content issue. My fault there. We might well hear more about it next week in the special session. Actually, that's our topic when the line returns in a few minutes.